ceremony. Malana Dogo, thank you so much. It's a great morning to you all. Let me welcome you to ZNCC ZITF Business Luncheon, an event which we host each and every year, by which obviously of our interests within ZITF as a shareholder, but also as a stakeholder, knowing fully well that the private sector will be represented. Let me also recognize the Minister of Industry and Commerce, who is represented by our Chief Director, Umama Makonde. Thank you for coming. My brother, the Worship Councillor, who did report at. Thank you, Mayor. It's a pleasure to see you in the room. Our Ambassador, Rashidi. Every time, I think, since your posting in Zimbabwe, you never disappointed. We consider you a very reliable friend of the Chambers of Commerce. Thank you for being with us here. The UNICEF Director, my sister Itona Ekole, thank you. We work with UNICEF quite a lot. And thank you, my sister, for coming. My leader, Umama Josephine. Sometimes when you then come across your leader, you just don't pass through the name. You have to know what to do. Maybe if you can just rise for people to know who the president of ZNCC is. Let's put our hands together for Sinta Kundwa. When they talk of ESGs, we are also conscious of gender. So when we discuss the leadership story at the Chamber of Commerce, one aspect we don't overlook is gender. Next, we also allow me to recognize, and she can also stand for delegates to see, the Vice President, Mama Bulu. Let's put our hands together for Mama Bulu. So, Madame Bulu, she is the President of Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce, Matabeleland region. Chamber of Commerce has got 4 regions: Mashonaland, Manicaland, Matabeleland, and Mashona. And each and every region has got its own president, but in the national scheme, then we call them Vice President. So when we say President and Vice President, it means the same thing. Thank you, my leader. I saw past the President Dongo. You can also stay just for people to know he was also a president of Manika of Matabeleland. Let's put our hands for Brother Dongo. We recognize you, my leader. Thank you very much. Women's Desk Chair, my sister Sibo. Just put our hands together for Sibo Mcheyua. She leads the Women's Desk at the Chamber of Commerce. I recognize you, my leader. There is always a debate. To us, it's not a debate, it's Chamber of Commerce. Every time when I talk to members, people will be saying, ZNCC, you came from ZNCC. So what is the difference with CZR? And I then end up and saying, no, but it's like, you are coming from NNB. Will you worry about CBZ also? But for us, we are even much closer than that. So you say the leadership of CZR in the room. Just thank maybe Ubaba Andrew Shito, he was a past president. Maybe they can just thank for people to know. Let's put our hands together, please. I also recognize my sister, she's in the room, Sekai Kwarika, a very vibrant leader, a lady. For those who always doubt, people who are still archaic in their mindset, to think leadership can be defined by gender. I think most of you agree also, Sekai, since I saw a ABC, she done quite amazing work. Thank you, my friend. Let's put our hands for Sekai. She's in the room. My friend, every time I see her, I say Sawira. I always eat this. That's Institute of Directors, Zimbabwe CEO. I just thank, if you stay there, you know who she is. I think everyone say, no. Thank you very much, my sister. And I also recognize one of the important banks in the room, coming from Africa Zimbabwe, Stanley Sachkoni, Manager Client Relations. I think we can just thank for people to see Stanley. We expect a bit of interventions from you also. Let's put our hands for Stanley. It's very important for no. Our permanent partners, I can't continue mentioning. I think we don't know how to say thank you. UNDP and UN, different arms. I think we continue working with UN and these different agencies at different levels. People ask, why are we in this room? Every time we try to align with the theme of ZITF to deliberate on issues which impacts on business. So the simple reason why we are gathered in this room is to deliberate on those issues which tends to affect businesses. If you ask some of the trending stories today at geopolitical levels, you talk of the aggression of US. I welcome the past President Lord J.Z. Swanda. Thank you, Mr. President. Welcome. Talk of Trump freezing aid to Africa. What does it mean to a business person who is seated in Matabeleland, in Mashonaland? And as business leaders, where do we stand in that? The tariffs, I think you saw an emotive debate. It became an emotive subject when the president of the country took a position after the US tariffs, rather, on the zero rating of them. But I certainly believe at personal level that where the global village is becoming one community, especially in Africa when we are talking of a CFTA, we can't continue relying on tariffs as a trade tool to drive industrialization. We need to drive an agenda of competitiveness, where any company which comes from outside, the push should not be on protectionism. So what is happening in Washington at the moment, obviously, up both of those small businesses. What is the problem? Is it the environment? Is it the challenge? We don't know what the challenge is, but we should know it. I believe by the end of these deliberations, we should have an agenda. Mayor, when I walked into Blawayo, one issue is Chamber of Commerce which continue worrying us a lot, the informality. We should not conflate informality with SMEs. Sometimes when you hear about the government policy on industrialization, you end up sometimes wondering whether SME and informality are one thing. I think we need to nip on the bud the stage of informality. We don't know how we can push that agenda, but one of the drivers of the industrialization in this country as we speak, it is an informal sector, which continues rearing its ugly head. Since January to date, I was privileged, I managed to visit about 85 corporates, ZNCC members, big and small. If you ask them, a common denominator challenge facing, it's informality, it's taxation, the aggressive taxation environment. Before they even talk about finance, we wondered why they were not listing finance at the time I talked. Maybe the lack of patience of capital makes them fear to borrow also. But obviously, we can't overlook that. So, my leaders, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. And we look forward to rich deliberations. May the Lord bless you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Please give our CEO another round of applause. For our welcome remarks, I'd like to invite Mrs. Beauty Bulu, who is Vice President for ZNCC Matabeleland region. Please give a round of applause as she comes forward to take us on as well.
Good day to all.
Okay.
I may you allow me to write on the protocol observed. For me, it's just to welcome you. In our culture, and in tourism, in our culture, when the visitors come, they are welcomed. So we're just welcoming you. We're welcoming you in Zimbabwe, welcoming you in Bulawayo. We are welcoming you in ZNCC. So I think you've heard that I'm the Vice President of ZNCC in Matabeleland region. So we are welcoming you in Matabeleland region at the 2025 ZITF. So you are welcome. Feel free. This is your place. We know that ZNCC is the voice of business. So this is your platform for today to express your views. So I say you are welcome today and beyond. Thank you very much.
ZNCC, a voice of business.
So I forgot one thing. This is the seat of kings, where there are beautiful ladies. And they say, if you want that one, the explanation of that one, I will explain to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Umfazi uchaya indoda means that the woman will beat up the man. But we are beautiful, we still remain beautiful. But I'm not sure how much power we have to do the beating up. But you are most welcome. Thank you so much to Mrs. Bulu for the welcome remarks. I'd like to invite Deputy President for ZNCC, Ms. Josephine Takundwa, to come forward again and share as well her remarks. Please give her a round of applause as she's coming forward.
A very good morning.
Morning.
The Minister of Industry and Commerce, represented by the Chief Director, Mrs. Mahombe, the Mayor of Bulawayo, with your worship, Jody Corbett, members of the diplomatic corps here present, past presidents of the ZNCC, past president of the CZI, CEO, CZI, and all other CEOs and captains of industry that have graced us today. You have been welcomed by the Vice President, and my role here this morning is just to give a few remarks. We are meeting here today under the theme of the 65th edition of the Zimbabwe International Trade Fair, which is industrialization, crafting of an integrated economic landscape. And as the ZNCC, we also bring to the table our own 2025 theme, which is unlocking business potential through policy, partnerships, and productivity. These twin slogans are not just slogans, but they are strategic imperatives. They speak to the need for national and regional economic resilience at a time when the global landscape is changing. And you agree, ladies and gentlemen, that it is changing very fast. Why we speak of resilience, we have various stakeholders present in this room today, and the issue of resilience touches on each and every one of us. And this arises from different aspects. It may arise from issues such as climate change, it can arise from trade issues. We have the current issues with the United States, where we have the tariff issues and so forth. It can arise from any angle, absolutely. So the call for resilience will not lie on a particular sector. It will not lie on particularly private sector, particularly government, particularly development organizations. It lies on everyone. So the issue really now is for us to then form partnerships where we can then work together and build this resilience that is required for us to thrive in this ever-changing environment. So on this note, this is a call that I'm making to all the stakeholders that's in this room, that that we all have a part to play. Each and every one of us in our different spaces. We form an ecosystem where if there's one cog that is not working well, the ecosystem doesn't thrive. So I'm making a call to all stakeholders in this room. Let's come together, let's work together, let's build resilience and be productive. At this point, my remarks will be very short because I know we have to go for the official opening. At this point, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce our guest of honor for today, who is the Honorable Minister, Kolisita Endlovu, Minister of Industry and Commerce, represented here today by the Chief Director in the Ministry, Mrs. Makombe. Let me also just mention that this is a lady that I also look up to. I've also worked very closely with the spaces, and it is my honor to introduce Mrs. Makombe this morning. Thank you very much.
Good morning to you all. I'm a messenger. I've been sent to read the Honorable Minister's speech, so don't shoot the SMS inside. And I'll read it just as the way how he asked me to go and read the speech. I'll start by recognizing the mayor of Blawayo, the ambassador of Ethiopia, the UNICEF director here present, the entire ZNCC executive, the Deputy President Josephine Takula, thank you for being here. The CEO, my friend, my brother, Mr. Christopher Mgaga, senior government officials here present, CEO of CZI, Sekai, my sister, past President CZI, I recognize you. Also want to recognize the captains of industry and commerce here present who are here because of you, distinguished exhibitors, all protocols observed in case I missed anyone, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. I now read the speech. Good afternoon once again to you all. It is with great pleasure that I join you today for the important engagement at the 65th edition of the Zimbabwe International Trade Fair, the Blue Sapphire edition. I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce for this kind invitation to address your esteemed gathering at this business luncheon, a signature event of the ZITF calendar. I also extend a warm welcome to our international delegates who have joined us for this milestone event, reinforcing Zimbabwe's position as an attractive investment destination. Ladies and gentlemen, since the beginning of this year, the Ministry of Industry and Commerce has had several engagements with ZNCC, all aimed at fostering a competitive business environment, addressing bottlenecks in the industrial and commercial sector, and ensuring that we implement policies that enhance Zimbabwe's economic landscape. Through collaborative efforts with ZNCC, we continue to work towards advancing industrial and commercial development, strengthening our value chains, and enhancing Zimbabwe's regional and global trade competitiveness. The ZITF theme, which is industrialization, creating an integral economic landscape, it underscores the critical role of industrialization in driving Zimbabwe's economic transformation. Beyond a traditional trade show, ZITF 2025 is a dynamic platform where innovation and opportunity converge. This year's focus is on showcasing cutting-edge advancements in manufacturing, technology, agriculture, and value-added services. These sectors, they form the backbone of a robust and competitive industrial base that is essential for economic growth. Key areas of exploration during ZITF 2025 include the maximization of the manufacturing industry's contribution to growth, upstream and downstream. We are looking at targeting tooling and retooling of industry to enhance competitiveness and efficiency. We also look at infrastructure development to create a conducive business environment, access to finance, market expansion and export diversification, innovation technologies, and the green industry, as well as climatic change issues. Ladies and gentlemen, let me note that the prioritization of technology skills development is also key. Hence, the exhibition provides unique opportunities for the business to engage, explore business projects, and again valuable insights into Zimbabwe's economic landscape. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as we move into the future, Zimbabwe is poised to become a regional industrial power base driven by technology. The future of our industrial sector lies in automation, ensuring that we use artificial intelligence, the Internet of doing things. This will definitely redefine the way how we do our goods, the way how we manufacture, and the way how we consume our goods. We envision to see Zimbabwe becoming an industrial park which are powered by renewable energy, where factories employ robotic automation to enhance precision and blockchain technology. We also want to take advantage of our youth dividend in ensuring that they are the future of tomorrow. They also assist manufacturers in ensuring that they do what we call smart industries. As we should also take advantage of the incentives to accelerate renewable technologies such as solar and hydro-powered manufacturing plants. We also want to reiterate that the skilled workforce that is applied for the digital economy through STEM-based education and industrial apprenticeship as part of our heritage-based learning will become very paramount. As we continue to integrate in the AFCTA, and Zimbabwe being the chair of SADC, which was successfully held, and we are continuing to ensure that we chair that organization, we ask the private sector to take advantage of the opportunities that are being unlocked through the SADC as well as the AFCTA or MESA. And we also are looking at partnering with all the EUs and as well as other regional and international organizations. We also want to note that the ZNCC becomes a very important luncheon, which is a pivotal platform for meaningful dialogue between government and the private sector, among other key stakeholders. This annual gathering allows us to deliberate on pressing economic issues, discuss our industrial policy direction, and collectively identify solutions to accelerate Zimbabwe's economic transformation. Once again, I would like to commend ZNCC for their commitment, and I hope you give them a good pam-pam. Can we do that, please? Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to also advise that the Ministry of Industry and Commerce is currently formulating the ZNITP2, which is going to be aligned to NGS2. So we are going to ask the ZNCC to actively participate in the formulation of that policy framework. We also want to note that Zimbabwe remains an industrial hub within the AFCTA. We invite the private sector to actively participate in consultation process to ensure that the policy framework is responsive for our aspirations. As I conclude, I want to reiterate that industrialization remains the cornerstone of Zimbabwe's economic growth, and events like the ZITF 2025, as well as the ZNCC Business Luncheon, provide the necessary platforms to drive this agenda. As we collectively craft an integrated economic landscape, let us remain committed to fostering synergies, embracing innovation, building an inclusive and sustainable industrial sector. The future of Zimbabwean industry is to be bold, innovative, and transformative. A future where we lead in technological advancements, integrate seamlessly into the regional and global value chains, create a thriving and inclusive and competitive industrial ecosystem. You note that we actually had a rural industrialization in Lava, a first at the ZITF, which gave an opportunity for us to showcase what is available within our rural entities. I would like once again to conclude my appreciation and would like to extend our sincere gratitude for ZNCC for organizing this wonderful event. Once again, I say thank you, Siamon Tate.
ZNCC, the voice of business.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for our guest of honor remarks by the Minister of Industry and Commerce, represented by the Chief Director, Mrs. Makombe. Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause. Thank you so much. I would like to invite Mrs. Bonkosi Muteyua, the Deputy Chairperson for ZNCC Women, who's going to be sharing on the ZNCC Women's Mentorship and Practice Program. Please give her a round of applause.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Master of Ceremony. Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to recognize the presence of the Minister of Industry and Commerce, Honorable Mr. Ndlovu, who is here represented by my mom, Chief Director Mrs. Makombe. I would like to recognize the presence of the Mayor of the city of Bulawayo, Councillor D. Kotat, the Vice President of ZNCC, past presidents and chamber leadership, ZNCC CEO, Mr. C. Mugaga, leadership from CZI, IOTZ, and other partners, other partners and supporters, members of the fourth estates, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I don't want to speak long because where I come from in the parastatals or in government, we don't speak after the guest of honor has spoken. So I will try to cut my speech as much as I can so that I don't compete with the guest of honor. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and privilege to stand before you this morning to bring to life the long-planned and awaited launch of the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce Women Mentorship in Practice Program. The subject in conversation, ladies and gentlemen, of industrialization cannot be discussed without talking about the crucial role of women entrepreneurs and enterprises and their contributions to economic matters and development. It is in this vein that I introduce to you this morning the ZNCC Women Mentorship in Practice Program. This initiative is a testament of ZNCC as a chamber and the ZNCC Women's commitment to empowering women in business who we envisage thriving beyond the traditional starting and running of a business in an environment where statistically a significant percentage of enterprises fail within the first trimester of starting. This program seeks to not only to effectively support and nurture and foster sustainable development of women-owned enterprises, but economic growth of our country as well. The program is designed to pair experienced business leaders and entrepreneurs with emerging women entrepreneurs, providing them with guidance, support that they need to succeed within their enterprises. The benefit of this program, ladies and gentlemen, goes beyond just guidance. It is revolutionizing the future of women enterprises and entrepreneurs beyond first-generation businesses. So at this point, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call to action and urge all women entrepreneurs to join this movement as I officially introduce to you this program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are looking forward to the Women's Mentorship Program. I'm sure it's going to be another exciting chapter for all the women. I'd like to invite Ms. Ethel Bangwayo from UNDP Zimbabwe. She's going to be taking us on for a panel discussion on industrialization, crafting an integrated economic landscape. I'll also give her the opportunity to invite her panelists as well. Please give her a round of applause.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you'll allow me to ride on the protocols that have already been observed. Let me first say how happy I am to see the gender representation up here at this podium. Many a time I've said to Chris, where are the women? Is there a quota for men within ZNCC? Please maybe give them a round of applause for that. Okay, so my name is Ethel Bangwayo from UNDP. I'm the national economist, but in the interim, I'm also heading what we call the Prosperity Unit. I'm going to be moderating what is said to be a very exciting panel discussion. So allow me to call up to the stage the panel, starting with Your Worship, the Mayor of Bulawayo, Councillor David Coulthard, immediate Past President of ZNCC, Mr. Mike Kamungemu, His Excellency, the Mayor of, not the Mayor, I hope one day, the Ambassador of Ethiopia to Zimbabwe, His Excellency Rashid Mohammed, CEO of the CZI, Confederation of Zimbabwe Industries, Sekai Kuvarika, and a past president of ZNCC, Dr. JZ Sibanda. JZ Sibanda. Oh, we have space, okay. The STEM lady, let me also call you up. Please do come up and join the panel. Thank you. All right, so this panel today, the discussion, I mean the theme of ZITF 2025, rightly so, has been around industrialization, talking about an integrated economic landscape, again in the context of industrialization. It was good to hear the ministry speak about innovation, about modernization. We cannot, at this point in the history of the world, afford to do business as usual. Innovation is important. Technological advancements are important. That's where we need to be. That's where we need to be happening. We've heard as well from the ministry about the next industrialization policy, which will be happening this year, isn't it, Chief Director, in time for NDS2. In Zimbabwe, as with most of Africa, we have a wealth of natural resources, agriculture, our agricultural land. When we look at our minerals, tourism, we have it all here. But unfortunately in Africa, we hear that Africa is still only responsible for about 3% of the world's manufacturing output. What do we need to be doing? How do we need to be positioning our businesses? What are the opportunities? What are the threats? Who needs to be doing what? And I'm hoping this panel, together with yourselves, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, will help us delve into some of these issues. Let me also not forget to mention the AFCFTA. This is a matter that is close to my heart personally. Regional integration, but also trade amongst African countries. So we move up from the current 15 to 16% of intra-regional trade to something that is higher and can help us grow our economies. So let me start by asking the panel to introduce themselves, just so I don't introduce you wrongly. Starting with yourself, Your Worship, please do introduce yourself and then we'll go down. He needs no introduction, but there we go. Let's just hear their voices, make sure the microphones are working.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, I'm David Coltart, born in Gweru, raised in this great city since 1961. I've been a lawyer for 42 years and senior partner of a law firm here. And for my very many sins, I'm Mayor of Bulwer.
Thank you very much. My name is Mike Kamugerem. I'm the immediate past president of ZNCC. And I'm also the managing director of a company called Tendo Electronics. We are into service provision. And we have been trying to go back along the value chain and also start assembling and manufacturing. So some of the challenges are associated with industrialization. We've encountered them and the other things that we need to do. Thank you so much.
Okay, good morning. Sari Bonani Makadi. Okay, my name is Rashid Muhammad. I'm ambassador of Ethiopia to Zimbabwe, to Zambia and Mauritius, and permanent representative of Ethiopia to COMESA. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sekai Kuarika. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Confederation of Zimbabwe Industries. I am also a board member for the Old Mutual Investment Group, OMIG, the Standards Association, and the National Manpower Advisory Council in Zimbabwe. I also represent CZI in Zimbabwe on the SADC Business Council, which we are currently chairing. I'm also the private sector representative to the OACP Private Sector Business Forum. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen and colleagues. My name is Obed Suganda. I'm past president of ZNCC and also chairman of Reliance Holdings and Honorary Consul of Latvia in Zimbabwe.
Thank you. My name is Sicelo Dube, passionately known as the STEM Lady. I'm a science entrepreneur. Started my science business at the age of 23 when I was still a student. I am here representing the students because I am in the space of advocating for science, technology, engineering and maths education, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Thank you.
Thank you very much to our panel, and I see just in time His Excellency the Resident Coordinator of the United Nations has just poked in. Perhaps you may, I don't know if there's room to join, but you may speak from there if you're happy to speak from there. Or would you like to? You're okay? Thank you. All right, so I'm told His Worship the Mayor needs to leave soon, so I'm going to start with yourself. I'll ask you your questions. So the conversation may not necessarily flow, but it's okay. Maybe we can ask you, Your Worship. So back in the, I'm a Bulawayo girl, born and raised. I don't live here anymore. But back when I was growing up, Bulawayo was really, we could really see into Zituna, right? You could see it was not green and clean industrialization. You could see the chimneys and the smoke coming up. And we knew industry was happening, but that is no longer the case. Your Worship, does Bulawayo have a strategy? Do you have any plans? Are these conversations you are having about resuscitating the industrial status of Bulawayo? If so, would you kindly talk us through that? What is it that the city of Bulawayo is doing?
Thank you, ma'am. And I need to apologize at the outset. I've been invited to the presidential luncheon at 12, so please would you excuse me. I like to keep time, and so I will have to leave without having the benefit of listening to your contributions. Our topic today is crafting an integrated economic landscape. And this is something which is very much on our minds in the administration of the city of Bulwer. How do we create an integrated landscape? How do we transform the economy? And I want to deal with four critical components. Unfortunately, I have to scratch the surface because I have limited time. But in all four of these components, they are all tied into creating an integrated economic landscape, which is beneficial to potential investors, which attracts investors. Number one is water. If you don't secure water, you're not going to secure any industry. And so a major focus in the city is to secure more sources of raw water, to upgrade our existing water distribution network. Because without that, if we cannot guarantee water for long-term investments in particular, we are not going to get the industries that we need into the city. Number two is power. We are looking not just at ZESA, as Cape Town is doing, we are looking for alternative forms of electricity, particularly solar. And we're working very closely with a private company, with a UN project to bring in, and we're working with other private companies to get additional solar energy into the city. Because if we cannot guarantee power for industry, we don't create that landscape. Number three is transport. This city's industry and economy was built on its pivotal position and the fact that the railways were centered here. Unfortunately, the rehabilitation of the railways is something largely beyond the control of the city, but it is critical to the creation of an integrated economic landscape. Tied to that is the reconstruction of the road from Bulawayo to Beitbridge and to Victoria Falls. Without that road being rehabilitated, we cannot hope to have effective business with our largest trading partner, South Africa, and to a less extent, of course, Zambia and countries to the north of us. So transport is critical, and tied to that, of course, is expanding the air routes to the city. I was saying to my colleague, His Excellency, how grateful we are that Ethiopian is flying into Bulawayo 4 times a week, and I've encouraged His Excellency to persuade Ethiopian Airlines to fly in daily to the city. They are making a profit out of 4 days a week. I hope that they will make a profit flying daily. And I'm also speaking to airlines like FastJet and Airlink to try and get direct links to Durban and Cape Town and other major centers. And Your Excellency, I spoke recently to the ambassador from Kenya to see whether we can't get direct routes from Nairobi to the city. But good transportation is critical. The final point I put under the broad heading of what I term predictability. Predictability in business. No industry comes in for the short term. They come in for the medium term or the long term. They come in for decades if they're going to create jobs and invest significant amounts of money. And there needs to be predictability in our city. Tied in, sir, to your point regarding vendors, a critical component of our city has to be to create attractive environments for our vendors to operate outside of existing formal business entities. And we are working on that regard with the creation of markets on the periphery of the city so that we can entice, not have to coerce, entice vendors and their customers to go to these semi-formal markets. And you talk about beneficiation and the like. That is best done in the creation of those markets. But tied into predictability, of course, cannot avoid the issue of rule of law. The reason, and I leave a challenge for you before I go. Why is it that Apple has invested so heavily in China, but not in Russia? If you study both Russia and China, you will see that Russia has plenty of expertise, has a huge market. They have the ability to build aircraft. They have the ability to create nuclear weapons. They have outstanding IT ability, but Apple is not invested in Russia. Apple is invested in China. And why is it? My belief, madam, is because of predictability. Predictability in terms of the sanctity of contracts. If businesses enter into a contract to invest in China, they know that those contracts will be honored, and if there are disputes relating to those contracts, they know that they will be adjudicated upon by courts and an entire judicial system which is not corrupt. Corruption as well is the key difference between, the approach to corruption is the key difference between China and Russia. In Russia, corruption flourishes at the highest echelons of government. In China, people literally lose their lives if they are corrupt. Now, I'm not advocating that now, but I'm simply saying that we as a nation need to learn from that. One final point in this regard, as a city, is that we need to compare our city to, for example, Singapore. Do you know that Singapore had a smaller economy than Bulawayo in the 1950s? And we need to understand what transformed Singapore as a society. And a lot of it was about respecting the rule of law, predictability, monetary stability, predictability of contracts, and critically corruption. If government ministers, if bureaucrats are involved in corruption in Singapore, they lose their jobs instantly. And that has a huge impact on the landscape, the economic landscape. No serious investors are going to come and invest in the long term in our city or in our nation if they feel that when they go to court, the highest bidder is going to win, notwithstanding what is written in their contract. And so I leave you with these four elements to creating an economic landscape, which is not about rhetoric, but which is about practical deeds which will attract long-term good investment into our city and in our nation, which will create jobs. And once again, I apologize. With those few words, I don't want to keep His Excellency waiting. And so would you excuse me?
Thank you very much. I had one more question, but we will allow you to were you happy to answer it?
Yes, sir.
It was just a quick one, Your Worship, about the billing system in Bulawayo. I mean, part of what creates competitiveness is are the costs, right? The cost of doing business and how business is done, the structures, what's in place. Is it easy? Is it difficult? Would you be able to briefly comment on the billing system in Bulawayo?
Well, partly is the billing system, and partly is the efficiency within our own council. And as our town clerk will confirm, as our management will confirm, I've been hammering away at this. For example, I find it unacceptable that in this day and age you can't go into your rates account and find out what your account is, and you can't use electronic banking to avoid going to the rates hall. It is a major priority of mine. We've got a lot of work to do, but critically, if we don't do that, we cannot project ourselves, as we say, that we are a smart, transformative city. So billing is critically important. Electronic billing, transparency in billing is vital, not just to residents, but of course to industry. It comes back, man, to this issue of predictability. Businesses coming in need to know that they've got efficient systems that they can employ to pay their bills, and they need to have predictability that there aren't going to be massive unexpected increases in license charges and other tariffs.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Your Worship, the Mayor of the City of Bulawayo. A round of applause as he takes his leave. Thank you. And maybe I can ask Your Excellency, the Resident Coordinator, to bring the rest of the panel up on stage. Yes, please.
ZNCC, the voice of business.
Okay, thank you very much. So a lot of what the Mayor spoke about was infrastructure. When he spoke about the four components, it was, I think 3 out of the 4 was infrastructure, right? But we know infrastructure does not come cheap. It doesn't just happen. You don't sort of get some money from the petty cash box to make it happen. And so, Resident Coordinator, does the UN have anything in terms of examples of experiences in terms of financing infrastructure for development, particularly to accelerate industrialization?
It is unfortunate that within the development community, at times the role of the United Nations is not really appreciated because everybody is looking for where the box is, or where the money is. And that is the Bretton Woods institutions have the money, so they are the ones who can actually do what they are supposed to do. But we always make a very bad mistake that the Bretton Woods institutions are part of the United Nations system. Yeah? And they are not operating outside that common framework. They are one part of that house that deals with financial transactions with governments. But access to financing and integrated economic landscape, to me, the argument presents a lot of misnomer, especially for the African continent. I was recently in Kampala where we were looking at the SDGs and trying to see actually where Africa is and where Africa needs to go. It has become clear to everybody, all development practitioners, that Africa's hope is to look inwards. Africa's hope is to try to see how they can mobilize resources locally and how they can improve on accountability and ensure that these resources are available for Africa's development. And industrialization is at the core of that. But the misnomer attitude around it does not really try to understand our potentials. And the UN has just done, the Office of the Special Advisor on Africa to the UN has just done an analytics, very interesting analytics. And here we are in Africa, always crying that we don't have money, we don't have resources, we keep on depending on external aid to move an inch. I will tell you some figures here that will blow our mind about the wealth of Africa and what Africa is sitting on. And we cannot really try to find ways to try to see how we can utilize those resources to actually spin or stimulate industrialization. According to the analytics that was done, one of the figures that actually blew our mind was that between $500 to $600 billion of financial resources generated in Africa are not channeled towards the continent's development. They are somewhere else. And here we are in the room scratching our head. Where are we going to get money to stimulate industrialization? The analytics went further to unearth certain interesting dynamics. And that is about $1.3 trillion pension fund in the African domain. $1.3 trillion. The third aspect was looking at remittances, well over $100 billion on remittances alone to Africa. They went further to look at the Sovereign Wealth Fund, which is around $24 billion. These are big figures. It blew our mind. $427 billion in private savings in Africa, and $483 billion in public revenue. And in the midst of all these misnomer realities, Africa is losing $89 billion in illicit financial flows every year out of Africa. What are we talking about in Africa? I think these are the difficult questions we need to ask ourselves before we start killing ourselves, bringing back best practices, innovative financing, and all over the world. There are plenty. The people in Southeast Asia have tested multitudes of innovative financing, from impact investment right down to sovereignty levies and everything. They tried it. It's working for them. But so to me, the important thing to start with is Africa gearing to improve on accountability, Africa using its resources wisely, and Africa willing to deploy whatever resources we have for our own development aspirations. There are several UN experiences that will be useful to look at. We tried to stumble across 4 based on our agency's comparative advantages. One is UNIDO experience in industrial development. They have been quite strategic in areas of technical assistance to improve industrialization policies, and also creating more favorable environment for investment and industrial growth. but these opportunities are not being fully explored. I have been in this system for over 3 decades. You can cry down United Nations, but we have a very strong technical capacity. For some of us who have risen to the leadership level, who went through the trenches, you've got to be smart to be where you are. Although there are few people who are still managing to navigate their way around, but you guys have a huge number of smart guys out there. How can Africans use them? That's my question to all of us in this building. We don't have the money. The World Bank, the IMF, the AFDB, they have the money. But when you talk about technical strength, we got it. But you got to work with us to be able to lead you to where those technical skills are sitting, so that we can make them available for Africa. So on industrialization, you need might be small entity, they don't have money, they are not attractive. Voila, forget about them. Let's go look for money where somebody can loan us money. But then the technical input into those investments become extremely weak. The other agency here is UNDP. UNDP has done a lot of work on initiatives on inclusive financing. I was once a UNDP resident representative before ever I started my new journey. And I can tell you that when it comes to investment in SMEs, best practices, and where we have seen changes in building up SMEs, UNDP has been in the forefront. So again, how can ZNCC and other industrial sectors use this experience of UNDP? Ask them to pinpoint those best practices so that you can use them in order to spin up your investment in industrialization. The third area is ILO financial education. We just launched a program yesterday, financial education literacy program for SMEs. Very interesting, in the sense that we are seeing people applying themselves to be able to become creditworthy and to be able to invest in small businesses. These people are there and they have this expertise. Use them. I brought you only 3 examples today. That is UNIDO, UNDP, and ILO. These agencies are the agencies of our prosperity pillar in our compact with the government of Zimbabwe. There's a lot you can learn from them. Now on financial models, as I told you, in Southeast Asia, I was there for 15 years of my life. I was there when the bubble burst in Singapore. Why did Singapore be where they are today? I can tell you, because I went there to study it for 3 months, just to understand what did they do differently. Singapore told the Western investments, you can bring your money to Singapore, but you will do it on our terms. You left us when we were in trouble. So now, come, but it has to be on our terms. Africa can do the same. You want our lithium? Yes, please, add value to it in Zimbabwe. Just don't take the sludge out to process it. So those are small policy derivatives that are so important to spin up industrialization, especially in the areas of value addition. So things that have worked, which you know, there are so many economics in this building. Blended financing have already given us the opportunity that indeed you can have partnership with the private sector, the public sector. Yeah? And you can actually create multiplier effects that can support industrialization. This is an area that is growing big in terms of blended finance because of the risky opportunity it creates for investment. So when are we going to start harnessing blended financing opportunities here? In Zimbabwe, we had a small pilot, a $10 million renewable energy program with Old Mutual, which led to the development now of a $100 million renewable energy fund. This was private sector, United Nations, and the government of Zimbabwe, which demonstrated that indeed you can have blended financing and you can start investing in that direction. The second area is development bonds. I don't want to waste my time on this, but all of you know that governments can actually mobilize local resources through bonds. And these bonds can become extremely useful for investment. And closely linked to that is that you can use bonds in a very creative way. You've heard about the green bond, looking at environments. You have about the blue bond, looking at the world of water and all its associated benefits. So these opportunities exist. we need to see how we can harness them. The third one is public-private partnership, where Zimbabwe is actually on course now, because I took my time to read the recent public-private partnership policy that was endorsed by Cabinet. It's a very good start in the right direction. But again, we must have the regulatory frameworks and enabling environment for some of these initiatives to work. And public-private partnership with tax opportunities actually can spin up industrialization, because it attracts investments. It gets people to put money on the table if they can benefit a little bit from it.
Okay,
the climate finance, I will stop there, don't worry. Climate finance, I think you have the UNDP people here, they can tell you a lot about that. But 4 recommendations as I leave. Strengthen policy framework, very important. 2, enhance capacities of financial institutions. They do have weaknesses that needs to be built. 3, promote innovation hubs, where Zimbabwe has already moved a step forward in the education sector. These are areas where you need to invest in. But please remember that Africa has the resources if we just put our house in order. The problems we have in Africa is our problem. We created it. At times we say people are taking our money. But if you under-invoice, you over-invoice, they are not going to do it without an African. They do it with Africans. So until we are able to be accountable, we will have this problem. So I hope this will be useful in the discussion. We are all running to make sure that, Mr. President, they don't tick our names. When they don't see us, they will not tick the names. But I have my UNDP people here. They will tell you all about climate financing, the opportunities for industrial spin-off. And I also looked at some literatures, which I will pass on to you, so that you can see those good examples where it is well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Resident Coordinator. Some very interesting figures there. 427 billion in private savings, 500 to 600 billion generated in Africa. Maybe let me turn to you, Sekai. You recently put out at the CZI your annual manufacturing sector survey showing almost a 1% reduction in manufacturing output. This is a bit worrying at a time when we should be going in the other direction, but I wonder what conversations you're having within CZI about what needs to happen to make manufacturing more competitive in Zimbabwe and to improve the environment.
Thank you very much for that question. I'll try to answer it in 2 ways. So the current conversation we are having about the state of manufacturing or its performance is really basically looking at what does that, not necessarily what the 1% reduction means, because we think it's marginal, so that can be the focus of the conversation. But what does it mean to remain with over 40% of unutilized capacity in the sector? That's where we are taking the conversation, because we do believe that that represents unrealized business and economic opportunities that should be unlocked for investors that have already invested in plants, which is in the country. And also we believe that it represents job opportunities that are stuck in that unutilized capacity. We are under no illusion that we could get to 100%, because some of the most advanced economies would still be having maybe 20-15% excess capacity or unutilized capacity. So it's about how do we unlock that capacity. And our view is that it also represents a loss of market share, a loss of domestic market share by the manufacturing sector in the local economy, because when you then look at our exports, our import numbers of consumer goods, they are on an upward trend while manufacturing has been on a downward trend. It means that the market is there, but it is being supplied from somewhere else. We do believe that unlocking competitiveness through an aggressive regulatory reform is going to be making a big difference for price competitiveness, because one of the key factors in the local economy for manufacturing goods, when we look at the factors of competition between local and imported products. One of them is price. So we believe we can unlock some price competitiveness by regulatory reform. But we also do believe that we do need a sustained and long-term growth strategy. And our view is that I think we are at a very momentous point where we are about to develop a new industrial policy as well as the NDS2. So we really need to start from a position of what I would call philosophy in terms of our approach to national development and to industrial development or industrial policy. I think that when we look at our industrial policy and the complexity of the interconnected elements in the economy, we need a more comprehensive approach to industrial policy. If you look at the developed economies, they actually no longer really have a document called an industrial policy. They do have economic development policies and strategies. But we are here because we are still an industrializing economy and we are still developing, but we need to assume the same level of like a sector-wide and system-wide approach in our industrial policy that is reflected in other policies, so that we don't address energy as an isolated issue, we don't address education as an isolated issue, but the industrial policy must be a melting pot for all the enablers and for all the transversal areas in the economy that work together to drive industrial development. So it really has to be system-wide and really comprehensive for us to move forward. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Sekai. Some interesting points there, but maybe before I move on, I've been asked to announce that those flasks before you have got hot water for you to make your own tea, but please do not take them with you. They are on loan. They are not gifts. Please do leave them behind when you go. So Sekai spoke about loss of market share, but the market is there. Unutilized capacity, but we're seeing the exports are still there. So your survey, I'm guessing, looks at the larger sort of enterprises in industry, but the SMEs and even sometimes the informal ones are playing a role there. And I'm looking at you, Mr. Kamugere, you are one of them, and we're hoping to hear from you in terms of their role. So when we think about industrialization, we think large, we think big, we think of the deltas, but what is the role of SMEs and what sort of support is required to ensure that SMEs can also contribute to the industrialization of the country?
Thank you very much. I think before I come to that question, I'm not coming from the informal sector.
No, SME, not informal.
Okay.
SME.
All right. So
there's a difference.
All right. So I also wanted to add my own perspective to what my sister Sekai just highlighted, particularly on the reduction in output, irrespective of the percentage. We have to confront it. There's been deindustrialization. I think we have seen companies closing. We have seen companies exiting Zimbabwe. You realize that we are in the business of supporting these companies. And what breaks my heart most of the time is when I get a phone call from a client saying, come and decommission the generator that you sold to us because we are leaving. And you find at times, we try to then understand what are the reasons for that. And you find those reasons, they may actually be an impediment again to our quest for industrialization as a nation. You realize that when you look at the life cycle of business, I'm coming back to your question now, where you start from micro, you become small, you move to medium, and then you go all the way to become large. In a normal setup, that's the trajectory that must be taken. So even when you ask about the role of SMEs, the SMEs must actually be growing. They must actually be aiding in industrialization. They must actually be forming synergies with the large so that the country becomes better. But what you are seeing is the opposite movement. There have been some bits that are becoming smaller so that it becomes more manageable. Some are even becoming informal because they are escaping something that we need to confront when we talk about industrialization. But the other time from the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, they were actually highlighting that commerce has become bigger than industry in this country. And you realize that most of the SMEs, instead of taking product from our manufacturing companies, they are going to take product from South Africa. They are taking product from China. So where they should actually be helping in industrializing, they are seeking to survive. They are still supplying the market, but where are they getting the product? I think important points have been raised about the operating environment, the ease of doing business, the regulatory environment. All that is critical if you are to industrialize the country. There's one key issue that I'm personally concerned about, which probably everyone else has accepted. You realize that when Japan were trying to industrialize and recover after World War II, one measure that they took was to increase the working hours per day from the 8 to 13 without paying overtime. Why? Because people needed to work so that they could rebuild their country. And when you look at our current Labor Act, the fact that it's not connected to productivity. Once someone comes, you are supposed to pay them irrespective of what they are doing. Even the most recent amendments, they don't support productivity. And I personally feel that it's something that needs to be addressed if we are to industrialize the country, both for the large and also the SMEs. It's very critical. Then one point linked to what the mayor talked about, the one pillar about access to energy, the issue of electricity. I'm in that business myself. I think ZNCC did a survey in December where they dedicated an entire section to look at why is investment in renewable energy not picking up. And there were valid reasons that were highlighted by those that are currently holding licenses and recommendations which were profiled. And it is very critical, both from a public sector and private sector perspective, to follow through some of these recommendations as well, so as we remove the bottlenecks. In the UK, over 90% of power generation is in the hands of the private sector because it's a business. So the issue of regulation can also play a part in unlocking that particular area. It helps in creating the integrated landscape because power is a key enabler, at the same time helping in industrialization. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So it's quite interesting about commerce getting larger and businesses in some cases preferring to have their manufacturing done elsewhere. There's been talk, in some sectors about, can we get back to that industrial era? Is it possible? Do we need to be focusing on other industries, on new things, digital, maybe STEM? I know STEM comes into it. And I want to come to you, Stelo. Your Excellency Ambassador, I'm deliberately leaving it towards the end because we would like to hear from you what you are advising Ethiopian companies in terms of investment in Zimbabwe, where you are advising them to focus. But we'd like to hear from Stelo, first in terms of the role of STEM, digital and innovation. Could that be where greater focus would be placed?
Thank you for that question, Ethel. And I'll say yes. We need to focus on that, and we really need to have a strategy that works. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we were here, this particular room, with over 100 young people, innovators from 21 different universities. They were all innovators. They all had ideas. We just had to pick one, and you'll see that person receiving the award today at the official opening. But my problem is, these are becoming pitch entrepreneurs. These young people, some of them, you remember, Ethel, when we had the Youth Connect, that lovely program by UNDP, which we definitely want back. Some of them are still the same while winning prizes 6 years later. But nothing ever comes out of that because there's a disconnect between our academia and industry. So they keep on coming to pitch, and you hear then after some time, a bigger company having done exactly what the student pitched 5 years ago. For example, we had a big company that I won't mention talking about we've started an insurance aggregator platform. But this was pitched 7 years ago at ZITF by a student from NAST. But there were no takers. We tried to lobby IPEC, we tried to lobby PRAS. How can it be done? There was no taker, there was no trust and belief in the young people. So STEM education is important, and just like the UN ambassador mentioned, we need to capacitate the innovators hubs. But this cannot be done in a silo. We need industry and academia working together for us to reach where we want in terms of industrialization and the economic growth. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. And that's quite important in terms of, we're talking about innovation and what works yesterday will not work today, and a lot of that innovation is sitting within the young people. But I know for sure from working with them that a lot of them don't want to share their innovations because they're scared that somebody will go off with their idea. I don't know whether we have somebody in the audience who can talk a little bit about intellectual property during the plenary and the Q&A. That's quite an important element to this. But maybe let me turn to you, Your Excellency, in terms of the sectors that you're focusing on in terms of investment in Zimbabwe and what you're advising Ethiopian companies.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like also to take this opportunity once again to thank Mr. Christopher, the Zimbabwe Chamber of Commerce, for inviting us. And I want to recognize the presence of Ethiopian companies for the first time in ZITF, and they are with me here. There is a representative from Ethiopia Agro-Processing Industry, and then the Ethiopian Airlines area manager is also present with us here, which is a good opportunity. So we have about 6 delegates for the first time participating in this, ZITF. Besides, it's a great privilege for me. It's me who launched, the inaugural flights of Addis Ababa Bulawayo Airlines flight, which is also supporting, Zimbabwean business, tourism, and people-to-people ties and so on. Having said that, Ethiopia nowadays is focusing more on homegrown economies with a pillar of, industry, agriculture, ICT, tourism, and mining. Previously, we used to focus more on agricultural-led industry, but still, even though agriculture is continuing to become a backbone of our economy, there are some sectors which are supporting, the economy also. So, Ethiopian Airlines, as you know, is one of the giant, airlines. To Zimbabwe, we have about 23 flights per week, 1 to Bulawayo, 1 to Big Falls, and 2 flights per day to Harare. So it means, there is an opportunity for Zimbabwean business as well as Ethiopian business to do a lot of, investments, because that airline cement, these all activities all together. So laser industry also is highly advanced in Ethiopia. So there is a potential for Zimbabwean investors and Ethiopian investors to jointly work together so that we can boost that, laser industry, because it's highly advanced in Ethiopia. The other one is small and medium scale enterprises. There are many in Ethiopia working in different sectors. So still there is a potential, because so far we have been focusing only on political, bilateral relationship. But there is a potential, because Ethiopia, as you know, is a big country of 120 million people with a relative proximity to Europe and everywhere. And Ethiopia Airlines this year is planning to earn about $8 billion revenue from airlines industry. And as you may know, we have joint venture with Zambian Airways, Malawian Airways, Mozambique, Chad, Togo. 50% of those airlines belongs to Ethiopian Airlines, which means, there is a favorable condition for the Zimbabwean business and Ethiopian business people to work together. But one comment which I wanted to make about internally generated resources. There is a great Ethiopian Renaissance Dam which generates about 6,000 megawatts of electricity. And Ethiopia was trying for many years to secure loan from different donors or organizations to finance this project. But it failed to get a penny to finance that project. So Ethiopia started to look from inside out and introduced, an investment bond whereby all Ethiopians are shareholders. For example, Ethiopians in diaspora, Ethiopians who are in Ethiopia are financing by buying, a bond, and Ethiopia was in a position to finance a 6 billion project which generates, 6,000 megawatt of electricity, and that project is nearing completion now. 97% has already been completed, and Ethiopia started exporting power to neighboring countries like Kenya, Sudan, Djibouti, and Tanzania and Zambia. So this can be one lesson, because if you start to look from inside out, I think the capacity should be from our own selves, because the grass on the other side looks more greener. The more we look for outside to come in, they cannot come. But we need to do our own, way and solutions to challenges that we are encountering. And this can be one lesson that can be learned for other, African brothers. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And so, you spoke a lot about partnerships, the airlines, facilitating partnerships, the SMEs. Can I turn to you, Dr. Sibanda, maybe to talk a little bit about partnerships and what sort of local, regional, global partnerships would help to accelerate the industrialization that we're looking for here in Zimbabwe?
Thank you very much. The advantage of being the last speaker, I'll just say I agree with all the previous speakers. Yeah, I think generally, first of all, let me touch on the items that have been raised by the previous speakers, which I certainly agree with in terms of industrialization. Firstly, the infrastructure, I think it's a key element. While the mayor was singling out those issues, but generally they are quite an issue, and also the issue to do with investment and also skills development. But the issue which I think needs to be addressed, I think it was also discussed during the business conference, the issue of disconnect between the institutions of higher learning and industry. Yes, we're talking of innovation hubs, but all these are not really working. But we really need a situation where we combine and we make sure that the students, together with industry, they come together and try to develop. But what is clear is that probably as industry, we do not have a lot of research and development. If we did, we would be going out to deal with, to look for students to help us in terms of researching. Coming back to issues to do with partnership. Yes, in terms of our situation, partnership is really the way to go, but it now depends the situation we have on the ground. I think a lot has been said in terms of policy framework, which is very critical. I've looked at the situation on the ground, and I realized that we are unable to attract investors to come and partner with us in a number of ways. One of the reasons which I think is to do with the policy framework, we do not come together to say which are the best or what are our distinctive competencies as a country which we should actually develop and use the models that South Korea has used, Japan has used, Germany has used. They are well known for certain things. South Korea, talk of Samsung, South Korea, talk of automobile, German, and so forth. So we need a situation where we package our own product or services, and so that we can now attract partners, so that we develop them we ask for development. We have a lot of agricultural issues that, agriculture taking place here. We should develop and process things along those lines, agriculture, agribusiness, value chain, so that that's when we can attract investors or partners to develop for the way as a way forward.
Thank you very much. So, elephants, their natural habitat is in the wild, isn't it? But sometimes they come into rooms and people don't want to acknowledge them when they are in the rooms. But I've heard that the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. So I hope we can eat this elephant one bite at a time. This issue of the tariff, what can I call it? A tariff situation that is coming out of the USA. What does this mean? And I'm looking at you, Sekai, because you represent a number of businesses. Together with Mr. Kamgeremu and Dr. Sivanda, you've been sitting in that position where you're an umbrella for many businesses. But what do you think this means for our businesses? But not only that, how do businesses need to be positioning themselves? A lot of what happens to us, a lot of our operating environment, we have no control over. And so I don't know whether you're having these conversations yet, Sekai, but how should Zimbabwean businesses be positioning themselves at this time?
Thank you very much for that, Ethel. I think it's a very complex conversation. And when we look at global developments, which is really one of the areas that we have not paid enough attention to, we have been very much inward looking as an economy in our policy making. So while we are actually supposed to come up with a global strategy for industry or for the economy, we have been coming up with a local strategy. And therefore, I think a lot of our policies and strategies seem to be blind to the mega trends that are driving the major developments and disruptions globally. And these they could span from climate change, the digital transition and others, and of course wars that would happen between Ukraine and Russia, and how these things eventually pass through the Zimbabwean economy. I don't believe that we've done enough in terms of analyzing these global developments and creating scenarios that would then inform our policies or position our policies in the global context. So you will see that even when we look at regional and local policies, they are not positioned in the global context. So they are largely informed by what we are trying to achieve. So that takes me to the tariff wars that are coming up, or the tariff developments that you are now talking about. I do believe that we are sitting at a position where we didn't imagine that this would happen, and when it happens, what would then happen? So what we see is, because it would affect our major trading partners, it would affect the trade between the US and China in particular, and I would say maybe even the European countries who are also our trading partners, and South Africa. So it's a pass-through effect. Like, how would the impact of that on China translate into the Zimbabwean economy? We do import a lot of machinery from China. We do import a lot of raw materials from China. The same with South Africa, which is one of our major trading partners. So the impact. So we need to understand the impact on China, and we need to understand the impact on South Africa and others, and then translate that into what impact it would have on Zimbabwe. So that analysis, is still an initial conversation that we are having. But I think my major point and the learning point from this development is we need to situate ourselves at every stage of policy and strategy in the global context. We can't afford not to. Thank you.
Thanks, Sekai. Maybe you could pass the mic to your right to Dr. Sivanda.
Yeah, indeed, what Sekai has said, I totally agree with it. We are inward looking. At the moment, there are so few companies that probably export to United States. Yes, I also agree that this is also contagious in the sense that we are going to feel it because of our trading partners. But so far, I think because of our situation that not so many companies are exporting to that region, we might not really feel it directly, but we will feel it because of our trading partners.
Thank you, Dr. Sibanda. Mr. Kamgerem, I don't know.
Can I add just one?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So the other point I wanted to add is on the nature of our trade. Yeah, because we are exporting primary products in particular, and our primary products, they are not a seller's market, they are a buyer's market. So we do have a lot of risk because of that reason, because it's a buyer's market on all commodities. So if we were to have significant inflation or devaluation of the US dollar in particular, our exports, which are commodities, may not necessarily experience an upward tick in the price because it's a buyer's market. So it would be to the buyer's advantage to leave the prices of commodities where they are, and because we are selling these commodities, we are not the market for those commodities, and also the continent is not the market for those commodities either. So because we are price takers, that's one of the biggest risks, and these commodities are our primary foreign currency earners in Zimbabwe and other African economies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think my colleagues have done justice to that question. But to just add, when the initial announcement was done, by the way, I am a board member at ZNCC, together with Josephine. What we immediately checked after the initial announcement was made was to see how much Zimbabwe is exporting to the United States, so that we could measure the immediate impact. And the figure was not that much. So just like what they are saying, in terms of the immediate, you may not feel it that much, because we have not been exporting that much. But at the same time, because we have a target of growing exports every year by 10%, we were still looking at ways of growing exports into the US. So that could then be an impediment. But to your question directly, because you are saying how does a small company in Belmont position themselves immediately, like what she indicated, they may want to import equipment from China, and if China are affected, they will directly be affected. But at the same time, in terms of the market, because there is a market in Zimbabwe, there is a market in Africa with the African Continental Free Trade Area, and my advice to them in the interim, other than crying about what's happening with the big guns, is to focus on this whole market, because it's huge, 1.3 trillion GDP. They can focus on it for now, and then manage the other factors as they occur, step by step.
Thank you. And on that AFCFTA note, maybe I can turn to you, Your Excellency, in terms of the Ethiopian, what is Ethiopia doing so far? So in Zimbabwe, we're taking steps, baby steps, and our tariff offer has now been approved. So anytime now the borders would open, do you have any advice for our businesses as we are trying to guard and safeguard our industrialization in an environment where the borders will soon be wide open? How, particularly within the context of the AFCFTA, what would you advise an Ethiopian business or a Zimbabwean business?
Okay, yeah, in this regard, Ethiopia is now introducing a lot of no-tax holidays, trying to incentivize, investors so that they can do business. And Ethiopia is also doing most of the projects that can connect with neighboring countries in anticipation of the implementation of the African Free Trade Area. For example, when you take, Ethiopia is a landlocked country. We are using, port of Djibouti. So it used to use us 3 days to travel from Addis to Djibouti. Now Ethiopia invested in a railway, electrified railway, that makes, that trip only in 12 hours. Besides, Ethiopia also invested more than $750 million in a project to connect Ethiopia with South Sudan. Also, we are doing the same to connect Ethiopia with Kenya, and that's all meant, to creating, conducive environment for the African Free Trade Area, because Ethiopia has already accepted, the tariff-free movement of goods, and we are trying our best to make sure that at least what we are doing is synergizing with all those, Pan-Africanism and Africa Free Trade areas. But besides, as much as possible, the government is now trying to liberalize the economy. There are some sectors which has been confined for many years to locals only, like wholesaler and retailer business was confined to all Ethiopians. But now the government said, no, we reached a stage whereby we open up this business for others to come in and invest. For example, Ethiopian Telecom used to be the only operating telephone in Ethiopia. And Ethiopia now allowed Safaricom to come and operate in Ethiopia. So we are opening up the business to make sure that we are keeping the balance, to make sure that the nationals are benefiting as well as we are integrating with other African countries. On a short notice, in 2 weeks' time, we are going to have a big expo in Addis Ababa, which will bring together more investors from Ethiopia and from neighboring countries. If any one of you are interested, maybe I can share that information through my brother Christopher, so that you can get the information and be part of that expo to at least know what's going on. Besides, today, by virtue of being a permanent representative to COMESA, I asked them, for example, I'm going to participate in one of the luncheon which was organized by Zimbabwean Chamber of Commerce. If I am asked about what support can we provide in leather industry, they said no, they have a platform and they have some resources for anyone interested to make experience sharing tour and so on. COMESA can support them so that they can go to Ethiopia and see what is happening there and so on. So me also being member of that COMESA, we can facilitate such kind of things so that Zimbabwean business people can go to Ethiopia and see what is happening in Ethiopia. Besides, nowadays we are beautifying our cities, making it a smart city, because as Africans we deserve also to live a very commendable and living in a clean energy area. And now Ethiopia banned importation of any fuel used vehicles. We are only allowing electrified vehicles to be imported to Ethiopia. These are some examples that can be taken as best examples to assist us to create clean energy and renewable energy. Because Ethiopia in one day alone, we planted about 600 million trees. It may seem something fictitious when I'm speaking like that. And in 5 years, we are able to plant 30 billion trees in Ethiopia as an initiative of Green Legacy. And we are trying even to replicate the same here in Zimbabwe through African group of ambassadors. We want to launch what's called a diplomatic Green Legacy Day, whereby every embassy can plant maybe 1,000 or 2,000 trees. For example, I took the initiative myself as a lead. I am preparing more than 2,000 trees at my residence to launch this program. So if we all join hands, we can do a lot of good things here in Zimbabwe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And I quite like the strategy of keeping your enemies close. So don't be scared of the competition. Partner with them. And so, before we go into Q&A, maybe a quick one for you in 1 minute. Maybe you can talk about the role of digital in the rollout of the AFCFTA. What sort of digital tools, what role can digital play in the AFCFTA? And maybe just get your questions and comments ready while she answers that one.
I'm saying definitely has a big role to play. The digital tools have a big role to play in this, because the information needs to go far and wide. One of the biggest challenges that we have in Zimbabwe, especially with the SMEs, we do not get information. So some information remains at a certain level. I was even saying to CZI, we would love our innovators to also be part of an arm of CZI somewhere, so that the information goes far and wide. So there is a big role for the digital space in the dissemination of this information. And I was happy to see that Siwa is here also portrays, through you being the motherboard of all these other telecoms. Such information should be like bread, ABC, simple, you get it at any point, it should be popping. Everyone needs to know, because I think it's really a big step that's going to change a lot in the space of industry and business. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Now maybe we can open up for question and answers. You can just show by raising your hand if you have something to say, and someone will bring a roving mic to you. Questions, comments? There are some in the far corner there.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ndombizane Nyati from NNB Bank. So my question is directed to Steno on the innovators. If you realize in Zimbabwe, for some time, we've been having innovators or micro or small enterprises coming up with new innovations. I can give an example of the dishwashers, the foam baths, and so forth. So my question is, what are we doing as an industry, maybe it also goes to everyone, as an industry, to close the gap between the innovators, the micro SMEs, and the big corporates? Because I understood the issue of award. I come with the innovation, you give me an award, and we are done. But now I think we need to be deliberate about it, to say, if you pick me as the best innovator, how do you link me up with the industry to make sure I go there and maybe get mentored and maybe get a bit of the real life experience and then just pitching my innovation? So is there something that we are doing as an industry, maybe all of us, or the ZNCC or whoever it is, to close the gap between the innovators and the industry? Because you check with China contributes about 30% of the global manufacturing on the electronics, because they're able to close the gap to say, if one person comes with an innovation, they're able to link them up with the big industry, then they're able to emerge and blossom. So is there something like that, so that we try and heal our manufacturing, our industries? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Maybe we can take 3 or 4 questions before we come to the panel for the answers. There was another one.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Joseph Deshe. I'm the CEO for a company called Immense Global Finance. But my question is, the number of brilliant initiatives that the panelists has talked about in terms of industrialization. But I think, in my view, the main challenge to these initiatives is the issue of corruption. And I would want to then check with the panelists and probably the CEO for Zimbabwe National ZNCC. What are the initiatives, what are the strategies that you're trying to put in place in order to deal with this elephant in the room? Surely we can't talk about growing the industry, this industrialization, this and that, when this critical element is not dealt with. So what are the initiatives, what are the strategies that you are putting in place to deal with this elephant in the room? Thank you.
All right, thank you. There's another one on this side of the room.
Thank you very much. My name is Edgar Kamsovo. I'm currently the chairman of the Research Council of Zimbabwe. I got a bit worried when the initial speakers never mentioned anything about research. But as the deliberations went on, I started picking up a lot of talk about research. And I realized now research has got a lot of space in industrialization. I think it was mentioned again in the Business Forum. And yesterday when we had our Indawa, we also talked about that. Well, before I get back to research, let me acknowledge the contributions that have been made by colleagues and their views. I share and agree with their perceptions and views. The whole issue of industrialization is so complex and requires, more like what our sister said, a melting pot approach, where we look at all the issues and aggregates that are critical that can drive industrialization, which are specific to Zimbabwe. Well, we can learn from other countries, but I can tell you there's no one template that fits everything. What they did in China is not exactly what they did in Japan. What they did in Singapore is not exactly what we should do here. But we can learn from that. But we can put our issues in one pot, see what should be done, and agree together on how we can eliminate all the variables that are disturbing or that are sort of frustrating our industrialization agenda. And I think the Minister of Industry should take the lead in trying to drive and come up with stakeholders which will allow us to come up with a strategy which involves different players and stakeholders. It can be energy, it can be policies, it can be laws, it can be... There's so many things that can affect this whole approach. So we cannot look at it from one side. So that's just as a comment. But to answer another very important issue that has been raised, from the Research Council of Zimbabwe, we are planning, in fact, this is a task that has also come out of this trade fair, from the Honorable Minister who is responsible for research in this country, who is the Vice President, Honorable Dr. C.D. Nchwenga. We need to sit down together with the Minister of Industry and Commerce, the Minister of Higher and Tertiary Education, ourselves, the Research Council, and we would wish to invite the ZNCC to be part of that. We intend to have some conferences or workshops and perhaps an exhibition where we have students from universities presenting their products, complete products and research products which they wish to be taken up by industry. And then we look for investors who can also invest together with these students. And we apply our law correctly so that our students will not get their intellectual property stolen by our investors.
We are having a silo mentality. Everyone in this room has an innovation fund. I know for a fact UNICEF has one, UNDP has one, the National Venture Capital Chair was here, they just launched one for the youth. The Ministry of Youth has a fund that they launched a month ago. The universities have a fund, Empower Bank has a fund, Port Trust has a fund. We all have funds, all working in silo. Half the time being given to the same pitch entrepreneurs with no KPI. So, if we've done this properly from day one, we could be now saying at our Hall of Fame as the lead advocate for innovator, because I started my business as a student, we have a Hall of Fame of unicorn, $1 million companies. But it's not happening because everyone is a silo. So we are going to work together, and I would love Sivo to comment and Sekai on this. If we work together, we will get somewhere because we have the solutions. And industry is now ready, I think. When we started, industry was not ready. But industry is now appreciating that dairy board can have the next flavor of my hair because a student with the PhD in microbiology has made the best culture for dairy board. I would love Sivo to comment on this.
Okay, in 30 seconds, Sivo.
Thank you very much. I think as Portras, yes, we do have an innovation drive and a fund, but our approach has been really, I think we are now trying to refocus our approach in terms of supporting innovators and trying to work with the industry and commerce as well as our own sector, the telecom sector, to start from them in terms of the solutions that they want, and then we can then invite innovators to innovate around that. So that's the approach that we're doing. And also I think the issue of training young people on how to start and run their businesses, because most of the innovators are more technical and the innovators don't really have some business acumen and how to run proper businesses. So we're trying to train that. We've partnered with the ILO as an organization to train those innovators in terms of starting and running their own business. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we are out of time, so I'm going to ask each panelist to spend about 30 seconds answering the question on corruption and another 30 seconds giving us one sentence of your parting words.
I really apologize, but I think this is extremely important. So we've got the social development sector in this country. And in the social development sector, we have managed to program national policies through different NGOs implementing different activities. Somehow, when we now come to economic development, we don't have the same kind of programming. So what you find in education, you've got the national education policy, and then you've got 1,000 organizations implementing bits and pieces and contributing to that. But it's all those activities are actually coordinated at the Ministry of Education. So in the economic development space and entrepreneurship, everyone is doing whatever they are doing. And the coordination at government level, where I would expect that the Ministry of Industry and Commerce is a melting pot for developing enterprises. I mean, maybe with other ministries, so that all these initiatives are actually, in social development, you are allocated even a district, because they look at the priorities, they look at their targets at national level, and then say, in District X, there are 5 organizations that are doing what you want to do, so we don't want you to go there, go to District Z. But we will duplicate initiatives because we have no government coordination of these. And I think it's high time that we take an approach where government is able to coordinate all the non-state actors that are acting in different areas to develop the economy, as it were. I think that's my critical input. But also in terms of linking innovators with the big business, the activities, I think there was a question that was asked, which I think is a point of pain for the innovators. What we've been doing is to also now try and direct some of the activities of entrepreneurs by curating business opportunities. Because what you find is that if you're doing a dishwasher, there's a company with 100 years of science and research in dishwashing liquids. So it will be very difficult to beat them, particularly if your product is a business to consumer product. But there is a very, very lucrative business segment that we are not addressing, and it's a B2B. There's no better market than selling to another business. So if in B2B, we are looking at manufacturing for manufacturing, where you can manufacture things that other manufacturers are going to use, and if they are more competent to get into the market of the consumers, then they can do that. So if it's not a new product, my advice is that keep your eyes or ears on the ground. We have released some of the information, and I'll give an example that I always give, which is on egg yolk powder. We make a lot of mayonnaise in this country, and one of the key ingredients in mayonnaise is egg yolk powder. But we import all the egg yolk powder because there's no local manufacturer of egg yolk powder. But that can be a couple of $1 million worth of a business for a startup here. If you can, so what we are trying to do is curate those opportunities so that you know that they exist through the work that we are doing with the subsectors, looking at what they are importing. That could be localized. And then in terms of new innovations, we are working on an IP initiative, an intellectual property initiative, where we will support new innovations that are not in the market with IP protection, IP clinics, and then accompaniment, so that we fund your IP process and quickly secure your IP before you are excited to bring your products into open spaces and exhibit them. Otherwise, the startups and innovators, they themselves then become the R&D for big business. And the other, my last point, is on the segmentation of the regulatory environment. So one of our key advocacy points has been that our regulatory costs are the same. They are blind to the size of your business. They are blind to the age of your business. And I'm happy to note that when I was at the Ministry of Women's Affairs breakfast yesterday, I think progress is being made with SARS and other institutions to begin to segment those costs. And I think we are also making progress even on other regulatory areas to begin to segment those costs, because we believe that these costs, besides making you uncompetitive, they become barriers to entry for new entrants. So the bigger company doesn't have to fight you on your products. They just know that you are not going to be able to afford the compliance. And it's easy for you to be picked up by the regulators and be shut down, and you are no competition at all for an existing big business. Thank you. I would like to apologize, but I thought I needed to relay that.
Thank you, and those will be your final remarks. So we'll start from the end, Stelo. If you want to say something about corruption, do, but also give us just one sentence of your parting words.
Thank you. So my parting words are, let's continue to work together, especially in crafting the integrated economic landscape. Let's leave no one behind, especially the student innovators, the youth, and let's try to find a way of creating one-stops for some of these solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, fellow Dr. Spanda.
Thank you. My parting words, I think I would reinforce on the issue of silo mentality. I think that's a big problem. Silo mentalities on BMOs, business, government, and almost everybody. We have a situation where everybody is busy with their key result area without coming up with the national goals. Just a quick one. 1 year, we visited Sweden. Sekai was there, ZNCC, Chamber of Mines, and MCOs. We discovered that they had what they called economic factor, where every decision, the decisions for the country were made, and the people would then, it was like a think tank for the country. But we don't have it. We have our National Consultative Forum, but we are not coordinating all those things. I think it's important. Of late, I'm impressed to see ZNCC and CZIS working together. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
On corruption, in an economy where there are so many shortages, you don't know where to start.
Thank you, Your Excellency, your parting words.
Okay, thank you very much. It has been, a great honor to be part of this, engagement, and I would like to challenge, the CEO of the Zimbabwe Chamber of Commerce to closely work with the Ethiopian counterpart, and I hope you will be joining us also in the expos that we are preparing in Ethiopia. One of the expos can enable people even to virtually engage, and that will, I think, be a good opportunity for us to get to know the untapped potential that is existing there, so that we can maybe do something good for the two sisterly countries. Besides, the Ethiopian Airlines have been challenged by the mayor if we can increase the number of flights. Because it's a business entity, I think that will be determined based on the number of passengers who will be traveling, and we can work closely with Ethiopian Airlines to see how that can be increased so that it can fly throughout the week. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kamugere, corruption. 30 seconds, please, and then your party. No one has said anything.
It's 1 minute.
30 seconds on corruption.
1 minute. My sister from NMB, when you raised dishwasher, there's actually a very thorny issue around these products. Some of the people that you are calling innovators are actually copycats. So you realize some of them are actually counterfeiting products. So it may not necessarily be innovation. But for the innovators, I'm sure my brother Kamsoko has said they will protect them and also connect them with us. Then on corruption, we signed an MOU with the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission. And what they indicated to us was that your members are actually the ones fueling corruption. Because they are the ones that are coming, they want tenders, they bribe, they want to pass through roadblocks, they bribe. And the commitment that we made as ZNCC then was that we will educate our members. So my brother Joseph, please don't bribe them. Play your part in fighting corruption. Then in parting, I would like to urge all business people that are here, it's critical that you also give your input to policy. We have heard that there's a policy that's being crafted. Let's give our input. Join BMOs, it doesn't matter which one. Join ZNCC, join CZI. Let's speak with one voice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And maybe Sibo at the back there, some parting words from yourself? Not corruption.
Thank you for protecting me, Chair. I think my parting words would really focus on collaboration and working together collectively for one purpose and to contribute to policy. Because policy really is the one that gives us direction in terms of what then we can do from there. I like the model that Mr. Swanda spoke about. I saw it in India as well. I think that actually works very well. I think we had a presentation from, is it Korea or Japan at the business conference, which I believe if we take those and try to use them as benchmarks and then work on our own unique approach, I think then we could then win going forward. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And so maybe before we close, so part of the purpose of this meeting was to get some policy suggestions and recommendations. So if you have any ideas, just find a piece of paper, write them down, and you can put them on any one of these tables as you eat lunch, and then the ZNCC team will pick them up. And please write something. If you've got nothing to write your name, something, anything. Please write something. But that is the end of our discussion. Thank you so much to the panelists. And a round of applause for them. And I'll hand over to Sibo for the closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think I'm speaking after people who are vertically challenged. Thank you very much. We want to thank you for supporting this initiative this afternoon. I know that we have a lot of people who are supposed to be attending the business, the official launch by His Excellency. But we just want to appreciate as Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce, you taking time to be here today with us. We continue to work with partners to improve the business environment and also to be able to contribute to policy formulation as well. I know CZI is at the forefront of pushing for the industrialization policy together with the Ministry of Industry and Commerce. Let's contribute through those organizations, CZI, ZNCC, and others. I think from here, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have lunch. We invite you to continue engaging and to continue exchanging ideas. Please don't forget to give your ideas and suggestions on the policy recommendations. Thank you very much.
ZNCC, the voice of business.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. As Mrs. Sibo has already advised, we're going to have lunch. May I kindly ask our VIPs to stay on their seats. We'll have one of the waiters coming in to help you, and then also the waiters will also help the other tables. Thank you very much.
ZNCC, the voice of business.
Stand by.